Okay, the story so far, the U.S. has captured Veracruz and cleared out the initial area here. I have, what, 4 of my needed 18 victory points, or 16 there's 18 total on the board. I need 16 to win. And it took me 3 turns to clear the coast, essentially, and now I've got to make a decision as to which way to go. Now, at the end of the last video, I was talking about how this is kind of a comfort food game, and it is, but that has its disadvantage, one of which is I intend to read the rules to Plantagenet, and I don't know, I spent so much time just wasting time throughout my day doing crap that like doesn't matter or whatever towards the gaming side of things, and then, you know, this is easy enough to play that when I want to devote myself to anything gaming-wise, I do this. And it's like, boy. Anyway. All it said is I got myself tied up in other stuff that wasn't raid and wasn't this, that I just ended up doing and not reading my rules, which I just don't have the focus for right now. All right. So on to the Mexican side of things. What are we going to do? We get another set of reinforcements, this time Santa Ana. And we don't have our guerrillas yet. If I recall correctly, I have to lose one of the towns for that to happen. Yeah, it's got it listed here. A little mistaken. Let's see, 0142, that's here. I actually have 2 armies showing up that I have to form as armies, otherwise their artillery don't count. I'm creating another one over here, the Army of the East, that was coming in Mexico City. I can combine those into one force at some point or another and create another force somewhere else, but right now I only have 2 armies available, and I need to move both these forces this turn. There's something, Veracruz has fallen, so we also might be getting some militia. In addition to what else we got. And this chart, I would hope is on the board, but it's not. The only place I think it's available is right in here. Oh, I'm pretty sure it's not back here. This is just, you know, the game should contain, it should be better set up visually and whatnot. There's plenty of room that little chart could have been placed somewhere on the board. We get 1 unit on 0351. Now, one of the tricks, the U's are always on the concave side. They call it the front, but it's not the front of every counter. 0351. That'll be way down here. That unit's allowed to move, but obviously it's not lead, so it won't be able to go into battle as it stands. And the movement rates are such that Santa Ana moving from here to here is better than if he moved here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He could get to about here. So obviously using that big powerful highway is really important. I've gathered my forces as well as I can. We'll see what the US does. On their own turn, we're probably gonna take a break right after. Supply table, yeah. I get 2 supply units and still no pack animals. And remember, okay, these show up at my port at this point. Remember that I could actually send them up there if I wanted to. The supply, the pack animals can only carry 3. So I'm going to probably want to hold this. This has already fallen to me with no problem. Veracruz is mine. I think I get 2 points of it back each turn. This is mine. None of it matters, but, you know. I mean, the Mexicans are not going to retake this stuff. Okay, so this is where the U.S. is gone. They've decided to push both divisions up this way. These guys are in general supply. I can take that off right now. It's the... actually, it does have an effect in case they're attacked or something. But I've decided to push up this way against the larger force, but sending both divisions against them. Now, this is the first time we're going to get into combat, isn't it? The first thing I needed to note was that crossing the river, it's got a penalty in combat, but so does jungle. They both have a -1. They're not cumulative. So my thought of, gee, I ought to be in the river, you know, along the river line was not a great one. But, it's the same as the rough and whatnot. So there's no big deal there. I put myself in that location because I believed that maybe it would be an advantage. And it would just, you know, no reason to look it up until I need to know. But the main thing is I want space to fall back because this game, you know, this highway is so fast that I could just push right through it. Now, the question is whether or not I want it to fight up ahead of the rough area or to wait until I have guerrillas and start screwing with the U.S. supply chain. I chose to fight straight up. Yeah, it might not be a great idea. First thing I'm going to have to do, I think I'm going to need paper for this game, to tell you the truth. So I will grab a sheet and let's find me some kind of pen or another. This should work. I don't want to use anything. Oh, this is going to be red. Yeah, it looks red, but that doesn't necessarily mean it. All right, we'll use one of these. I don't like using these for just scratch stuff, but they're all I got up here. Okay. I got to count the strength points for the units. And then we do some mechanical aspects, all of which are going to get noted down. After a quick counting, and I had to be careful because I took this U.S. Navy artillery, which can't move. It has a movement allowance, I believe, of 1 hex per turn, not 1 movement point. So it's sticking back there. If it had a one movement point, let me just check. Yeah, 1 hex per game turn. So yeah, it can't keep up. It's got one duty, which is to garrison Veracruz, basically. They could garrison this, but that doesn't matter to me that much. So I counted up the strength points, and I have 48 for the U.S. there and 13 for the Mexicans. That's good because otherwise I could have declared an overwhelming attack or whatever during movement and maybe just busted through it. And I probably should have anyway, just because there's no harm in doing so. In this situation, I wasn't going to move anywhere else. All right, now we have to figure out a couple of different things. One is the battle morale. So for the U.S. and for the Mexicans, the national morale is 0. Let's just check to see what else is here. Demoralized units have an automatic. I think out of supply may have an effect. So let's roll. Here's the U.S. one. The U.S. gets a 3. That gives them a battle morale of 1. I'll put that there. And the Mexicans have less of a morale. They still use the same. They use a different table, a different column on the chart, which is kind of weird. They have. Okay, let's do +1. Let's do -2. Not good, right? Now we look at leadership. The U.S. has 2 leaders here with a total of 6, so their base leadership is 3. We'll take a look at their leadership rating. Any modifiers? Leadership level is added to morale, yeah. Okay, so 3 of 3, that's going to be a +1. So now we're at a total of +2. And the Mexicans have a leadership of 2 as their base. And they also get a +1. So the net is going to be a 2-column shift against the Mexicans. So 13 goes into 48 3 times, plus some spare. And then there's a shift of 2 odds levels, make it 3 odds levels. There's a +1 here, in favor of the U.S. 1, 2, 3 puts me up to the 6-to-1 table. That'll put me here. Now, modifiers to the die roll is a -1 for the terrain. We get a 5. Attacker takes a 1 loss and an advance. The defender takes a retreat demoralized with a 4-level loss. Okay. And again, this system is incredibly finicky, and I don't really feel like it gives you a lot of addition. At one point in my life, I would have liked this. Nowadays, I view things a little differently, maybe. Maybe because I video them instead of imagining what's going on as much. I'm not sure. Okay, let's take a look. First, we look at the battle morale for the U.S., which is +1. And we compare that to their loss level, which is 1. And we roll a single die. We get a 6. The U.S. loses 10% of their force. So they're going to lose 5 strength points. Write that down just because I'm doing everything on camera. Now we look at the Mexicans, who are sitting at a -2 morale level. They don't worry about their leadership for this. And they are going, and maybe, I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, it's on above 0.5 that you round up, apparently. I say looking at this. It's not spelled out in the rules. I would round up on a 0.5, but anyway. We're on a -2. We took a 4-level hit. There's no modifiers to this. They take a 25% loss. 25% of 13 sounds like 4. They say 3. Yeah. With their round. Okay. In addition, I'm going to take those losses, but I also take 2 dice retreat and a demoralized marker. So I retreat 5 hexes. Get a demoralization marker. These must advance. And I'll take the casualties. Casualty losses. No, the U.S. lost more troops, right? I had to take the majority of my forces in regulars. So that came off the regular division because I've got a mixed force there. And I fucked something up. There was another shift, wasn't there? Because I have a division and the other side did not. And I knew about this and just forgot it. Yeah, so I should have actually been shifted over to here. So instead of A1 RD4, that should have been an F4, which means very little more. Just all artillery would be destroyed. Oh, I forgot about B&M. In both cases, B&M shifts, because we both had an army involved. But all artillery is destroyed. I don't think there is any artillery, because that's not an army formation, so it couldn't have had any. But it does go back another 3 hexes. And that is correct. Which means this is now open. And, you know, chances are the U.S. can just keep pursuing this demoralized force. So that's not really that big an issue. But yeah, we didn't get a heavier result. We didn't get anything else that was that major. We just got that F result, which doesn't do too much difference. Now, that's the end of their combat. There's no disease and attrition, so we will be going to turn 5 here. I'm going to have to break because my battery needs charging and I need to do other stuff. Pointed out to me I could delay my Mexican reinforcements. I don't know if I said something that implied that I couldn't. I'm aware of that. Maybe not at the top of my head. I don't have any real desire to. I want to pump things up to the front. Maybe I'm not wise. that would not surprise me, but yeah. I kind of noticed it's obnoxious. Army of Mexico could have made it to Puebla. I moved an extra hex because I had an extra hex there. Well, just wasn't paying attention, but I've got an artillery piece that's coming into play at this point. And I can't move that except by moving back, picking it up, and moving on. Yeah, it only cost me a couple of movement points, but if I had known about it, I'd be back here. I also have to keep in mind, because it's not absolutely clear, and I don't remember all that well. You know, it's Tuesday now. I'm going through this relatively slowly because I'm playing a lot of Raid and fucking around on the computer way too much. And I kind of equate those. Like, I stop playing Raid and I just start watching videos and screwing around with shit and whatever. Same thing, really. Nothing exciting there. I just fucking around. But these militia, because they're not called out specifically, you know, there's the Mexican reinforcement phase. It may say that you roll for your militia. Yeah, it does up here. But even with that, it doesn't blurt out to me, so I just check here and I forget about it. And I almost forgot to put them down. Just pointing out the kinds of things that give me trouble when I'm playing a game. You know, certainly the second time I play it, I'd be much more comfortable with this. Like if I played it again very shortly. That's not going to happen though, right? You know, I've played this once since sometime in the 1990s. And have broken it out again. It's not that it's a bad game. It's not. It's kind of cool. But there's just so many boxed games. And I have, you know, another couple hundred magazine games probably that I haven't gotten to either. Many of the boxed games I've gotten to. I tend to prioritize them. Trying to fix that. Mexicans run their armies up to the front. Now, I've gathered those demoralized units, but they rally before the Americans get another turn, so there's no real chance to pursue in the game. Basically, it's not really that big a deal that they're there. But what it did mean is that I had to keep the general there, which is kind of a big deal. This general is the one who was up at the front. He's taken over the Army of the East, and now I've got Wrangel going down because I don't want him muddying up my combat value. And that should put me over to... Something happened on turn 5? Thought something did. That should put me over to the U.S. side. U.S., I got a supply and a horse. I had another supply back here that I couldn't carry with me. And I'm going to actually expend this supply so the 3rd Division can march up and join the 1st and 2nd Divisions, and I can just slam into the Army of Mexico with everything. It's kind of how I feel like the game asks to be played, is to throw a lot of force at stuff. I'm not sure it really does, though, right? So this is the kind of, I don't know, naive thinking I have. But here's the thing. The casualties come down to being a percentage loss of your own forces. But getting on a better odds table makes sense. 3rd Division has a good leader. a good enough leader. I'd actually be watering down my leadership. Maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I'd be better off marching up this way. But something in my head says, concentrate all the forces, get the mostest there. Be firstest with the mostest. And I don't know how much is here. I really don't. I can look at the piles and I can say, wow, there's a lot of pieces there. But we're probably talking about a column shift. And I'm spending a supply to get this unit up there. I still think it's worth it. So we'll see what we get. And it is indeed a column shift. We don't know if it's an important one, okay? I came up with 67 strength points versus the Mexicans have 55. Now, 24 of those strength points were in that 3rd Division force that I moved forward. So, take those away, and I'm attacking at 1 to 2 instead of 1 to 1 as my base attack. But I might end up stuck in somewhere like here. All right, so now we take a look at battle morale. And the U.S. is at +1 now due to their national morale table. They get a 3, they'll get a +1 on there. I don't remember. This is like the morale value. I thought. I don't remember what that is. Oh no, that's losses. Okay. And the Mexicans are at -1 because they lost a battle. But they roll a 5. They also get a 1. So Santa Anna has rallied his forces and is actually in pretty good shape. Now we go to the other value, the effective leadership. And the U.S. has 4, 6, 8 divided by 3. I think is going to round to 3. I believe these do round. I get a 2, that gets me a 0. Whereas Santa Anna has a 2, which is not as good, but it's as good as the Mexicans are going to have. And they get a 0 as well. So now we're looking at 1 to 1. Both sides have a 1 combat effectiveness, and both sides have armies as the majority of their force, which is another 1 combat effectiveness. We're looking at a straight 1 to 1. Maybe the U.S. was dumb here. With a -1 to the die roll, which can't be good. The U.S. Army is in trouble here, I think. I figured I'd be able to beat them. We get a failure at a 4 level. And they get an advance of 1. And I shouldn't be in this hex. I should be like this. Okay. And that means we look up the battle morale. And these had to be percentage losses. Okay. The battle morale is +1 for both sides. So we're both going to be on here. That F4 is going to give me just a 5% loss. So 5% of 67, I could calculate it, but what the hell, it's 33. 5% of 67 is going to be 1, 2, 3. 3 hits on the U.S. Okay. And I'm on the 1 table here, which causes no losses whatsoever. So the U.S. is not taking that big a loss, but they're going to be smacked around, and that resets the battle morales, or the national morale. And then a 3-dice retreat with a disorganized, giving the Mexicans a chance to pursue the U.S. because the U.S. attacked on their turn and got defeated. On the last time the U.S. attacked, the Mexicans were defeated. They had a chance to reorganize. They just couldn't react immediately with a counterattack or anything like that. This feels a little too, I don't know. It feels like demoralization shouldn't be an automatic recovery that happens at the end of the player turn, right? It feels like maybe there should be a die roll or something like that that would cause you to actually continue your route instead of just, hey, you can't do anything. So here's the U.S. going 4, 6 hexes. I'm going to keep falling back. I'm still falling back towards. I don't have to go the best possible path. And this actually, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I have to go here, which is a shame because the Mexicans can attack me from here. And it doesn't matter that they're crossing the river because I'm in the jungle anyway. So there's going to be a -1 there anyway. The Mexicans automatically advance, and they took no losses whatsoever. I've got to pick 3 losses out of the U.S. forces, 2 of which are not volunteer. Now, this leaves me in an ugly position because my retreat is going to mean I'm going to have to lose all 8 of these artillery. One of my losses had to be taken on a volunteer. Artillery is not volunteer. The other 2 I'm going to take on the artillery because I'm going to lose all of this anyway due to that complete route. And Santa Anna is a hero at this point. And has really destroyed, has really defeated the U.S. Army and is in a position to finish them off. That's the entirety of the U.S. Army down there that's demoralized. I took a chance on a fight that I thought I had an advantage on, and it turned out not quite as much. I thought concentrating my entire force against the Mexican main army, Mexico's divided into 2 forces. I could have gone after the weaker one, there's no question. But the highway is so important, and I couldn't really let the Mexicans come back and hit this. But this weaker force coming down to hit it after I disposed of the larger force, yeah, I could deal with that. So it seemed like a wise idea, but I got my ass handed to me. I'm not absolutely certain about taking the artillery as casualties, whether or not that's allowed, but the way the rules are stated, you take casualties on combat units. Artillery are defined as combat units here. The iffy part of it is that there's this example that kind of seems to indicate that you must, or there's a rule that seems to indicate that you must take regular units than volunteer units. It's a little poorly worded and whatnot. And artillery aren't really either. They're allowed to attach to either kind of division or whatnot. I think it's only fair that I be allowed to take the artillery, to abandon the artillery in the fight to the casualty level. Of course, that's going to make things really hard in terms of taking the last fortress here. These guys are not fortresses, so at least there's that. Oh! But here's what sucks. The rally phase, it comes just before combat. So you're not allowed to move into a combat situation, but the U.S. does not rally. Yeah, I was really worried. You attack in your own turn, and the rally phase comes last, and look, you're recovered, and there's really no effect to demoralization if that was the case. But there is a big effect. The big effect is that U.S. Army is now demoralized, and that is going to give it a number of nasty penalties in combat. Let's take a look at, if I can find demoralization here, the effects. They have a morale level of -2. They don't have to worry about their national morale or whatever. They don't roll against that, which means if I could concentrate both Mexican forces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I can actually get both Mexican forces against them. So this might be over real fast. Which means we have to play another turn. I mean, the game's not over if this dies, but I think the U.S. would be in a lot of trouble if that force gets hit again and gets hit hard. Especially with they're going to be rolling their casualties over on the battle morale -2. Notice I forgot to raise Veracruz's fortification level, for whatever that matters. But yeah, now it's time to hit the U.S. forces here. Neat. All right, I'll count it all up. Close. Mexico has a combined army of 85. They're hitting from 2 different hexes. They kind of have to. I don't know, I might have... Nah, this really couldn't get anywhere but here. It might have been able to get here. Could I have gotten there? Because it would be advantageous for me to be in 1 hex, but I think I screw up their retreats if I do this. So this could be the game here. Could be. I have good retreat paths at least. All right, so 58 and 29 is 70, 87. I don't quite have 3-2 odds on that, which means I just barely fall into the 1-to-1 table. However, battle morale is going to be -2 for the demoralized Americans, and the Mexicans are at +2. Leadership value for the Americans, we said it's 3 is their core leadership, but they get a +2 from that, which will cancel out their bad morale. And the Mexicans are at a 2 morale still, and they get a +1. That means the net effect is still not very good. We're looking at, they both have armies, so I'm not going to worry about that. We're looking at 0. We're looking at +3 columns on the 1-to-1. 1, 2, 3. That gets us to the 3-to-1 column. There is a -1 though, because of terrain, which could be very bad for the attacker. But it might be good for the attacker as well. -1 gets me a 3. Okay, the attacker failed. They're in trouble. They're not badly hit though. Oh no, they are. No, they succeeded. They're going to get a hold position with a 2 combat penalty, whereas the Americans collapse quickly and get a failure with a 1 on the table. Okay, let's look at the Americans first. They're on the -2 table, but they're only on the 1 here. They're going to take 10% of their army, which means we're going to lose 6 units. If we had any artillery with us, we'd lose that as well, but that's not going to happen. And the Mexican morale is way up on the +2 table, but they got... What were we at here? Did I screw up? I lost my die. I think I was reading here on the 2-to-1. I should be here. So these should be on the 15%. 15% of 58. Okay, we got to do it this way, I guess. It should end up being 9, but let's just see. That's 3, 6 for 40. 18, 9. Yeah. Okay. So that's going to be 9 losses. I have the result wrong. I should be at 1, 2, 3 modifier, and I had a roll of 3, which means the attacker takes an A -2, The defender takes an RD minus 2. We'll get to that in a moment. So the attacker is also taking a 2, but I'm over here on the +2 table, so my results are not going to be as bad. My army holds together a little better. I lose a single strength point. Okay. And now the results are an A and an RD. RD is retreat demoralized, which means it's going to be another morale loss for the US and a morale gain for the Mexicans. Things are not going well. And only a 2-die retreat. But I got to look up the retreat rules because I don't know. I can't retreat this way. I'm not sure I'm allowed to retreat that way. This could destroy the army. I'm not sure. Okay, this is a bit of a mess. So players must attempt to retreat towards their supply source, which is Veracruz for me. Okay. Must attempt to. Units may retreat through enemy zone of controls. They take a penalty of a strength point per. However, for each enemy zone of control entered in retreat, they lose a strength point, yeah. They must avoid ZOCs whenever possible. Okay, so I must attempt to retreat towards my supply source, and I must avoid ZOCs when possible, and retreat through them only when there's another route available. I think there is another route available, so I retreat this way. But I also think that usually these games have a requirement that you have to be as many hexes away as you retreat. Let's see. Players also must retreat along and through road hexes if possible. Players should choose the most direct route using the above criteria as possible. Ooh, I cheated when I fell back to here. I should have just fallen across the road. We'll ignore that. Yeah, so I think I roll 2 dice. I'll have an 8 hex retreat, and I think I can retreat. I have to retreat here 1, and then the question is whether I want to go this way or this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gets me to this road. Let's put a die there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 gets me to this road. I don't think it makes much difference. I'll retreat around this way. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything that forces you to be as many hexes away. And the Mexicans have to advance going into here. I'll take the casualties, and that will be the end of the turn, right? Did I just cheat? Mexican turn came first, so yeah, I've got to do the U.S. turn before it's the end of the turn. It feels like the U.S. should be going first because they're attacking, right? That's usually the case. After taking losses, the U.S. falls back to here. I don't have to expend a supply marker because I'm within movement range, and you're always in supply if you're in a fortress. So there we have that. This moves forward. And we move to a disease turn. Gonna break, but yeah, this is not what I expected to see of the game. From what I've read, in terms of comments and everything, some people are asking, "Hey, is it even possible for the U.S. to win this game or to lose this game?" Yeah, the Mexicans can win this one. They certainly put a major setback on the U.S. side, and it's not that long until we have the withdrawals. We're about halfway there. There are no new forces until then. It's looking kind of ugly, and we're going to have nastier disease because we're near the coastal regions, I believe. That would make sense, the jungles and whatnot. That's what I'm assuming. I think it was east of the line is where it turns nasty. All right, anyway, it's break time. Now here's the problem. The Mexicans can't really siege Veracruz because I would need to have units here and here at minimum to be able to siege it, I think. I'm not sure about what's up with that. And I would have to peel off some forces to like blockade, and that might allow, these divisions to attack. Of course, then I might be able to attack them in the clear because they'd have to advance if they do attack. So I don't know quite what would happen there, but as far as I can tell, what I really don't want to do is I don't want to split my two armies and try to hold both of that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fall back. I didn't get any reinforcements, none of the militia. I think I'm going to fall back onto my my two towns again, and jeez, you know what I mean? See, it's a hard call because what I may want to do is fall back behind the yellow fever line. I might want to fall back just on the highway and keep my force concentrated so that the U.S. can't pick off one of my two forces by being a little bigger. Or I may want to just split these two armies up like I had them and try to defend both routes. This route is a lot less valuable than the main highway. So I don't know. This is just a hard call. But I don't want to be, I really don't want to be on this side of the fever line. So what I may actually do is I may blockade the roads right beyond the fever line with the thought that the U.S. will be stuck in the bad fever zone for this turn, and this is when they'll get their disease. Nice supplies in for the U.S. I got 2 supplies, no pack animal, but I have 2 pack animals, so I'm able to actually operate going up both flanks if I want to. I don't think that's terribly valuable though. I can look at the size of the stacks and say, oh look, the Army of the East is a lot weaker. Maybe I want to pick on that first. But that might open this up to attack. Which leads me to, again, do I have to just take Santa Ana on? How big's the 3rd Division? It's not too big. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Crap. And then disease, I suffered even if I'm in the city. So yeah, that's not going to help. Just trying to figure out a way of getting a grasp on things. I think my only way of getting beyond the line is to bash my way through. It could be this way: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could smash my way through that. That would be the easiest path. Or I could go after the Army of Mexico, which I can clearly reach. I'm going to roll a die. I'm going to just push my army up one or the other path. Odd will go up this way. Even we're going to go for the Army of Mexico, mainly because I can't make a decision here, right, as to which makes more sense. Like, I can beat this. You know what? Yeah, I'm just going to go for that. Just going to go for that. And I'm going to bring all my horses with me and all 3 divisions and just smash forward into there. You might have noted and come to some interesting conclusions about is that I'm not using a lot of my reconnaissance capabilities. It's mainly because it really isn't, it's not a matter of, oh geez, I know what the forces are. Kind of do. But it's I think that the players would actually have a pretty good idea of what the forces are just by looking at the size. Yes, they're dummy counters and whatnot, but they aren't going to make a hell of a lot of difference. But what it comes down to is, once I project my force up there, I pretty much have to commit. Now, I think what I could have done is move my engineers forward before I move these forces and do a reconnaissance during movement, get the information back, and then make a decision of which direction I want to go. But I knew I wanted to go this way. So we got our numbers. It's 50 to 29. That's going to be a 3 to 2 situation. Let's take a look at morale. The U.S. is at -1 on the morale table. So they have a +1 morale. And the Mexicans should be a +1. These will not always be mirror images of each other. If, for example, a U.S. Army smacks into like some little unit on its own, I get morale off that and the little unit doesn't lose any, which feels weird. Oh, the Mexicans get a big +2. Okay. Leadership, I again think I have 3 here. And I get nothing. And the Mexicans have a 2 under whoever this is. Is it Cardozo? I don't know. I can't really read. And they get a big +1. Wow. Yeah, if you outroll the leader, the enemy. Okay. So, so we're at 3 to 2. We have 2 shifts against us. Armies are equal at a -1. So 3 to 2, 1, 2, down to the 1 to 2 table at a -1 for terrain. But I roll a big 5. That's going to be both hold and both take a 2-point loss, a 2-factor loss. So, U.S. is at -1, a 2-factor loss will be 15% of 50, which I can look up, 7. And the Mexicans are also at an H2, but they're on the +1 table. However, they take 10% of theirs, but that's only 3 strength points because we were a smaller force. This is why you don't want to combine. I don't get to advance, which means I'm still stuck behind the yellow fever line. Yuck! Highlight something about the particular mechanisms that the counters use here. So I've got a 2-point militia. It's got a U on the other side. I want to take a hit on the militia, so I'm taking a 1 point off that, which weakens it. But that makes it kind of annoying when I start counting, because I'm just going to work down through the thing and I see 2 points, then I see the 1. And I'm like, oops, I got to subtract 1 or whatever. But it is something kind of obnoxious with the way that the strength points are arranged in this. I don't know what you could do about it. You know, it's the fact that like there's steps on the back of some of the units and not on the back of the others because they're unknown units. And I've been trying to avoid having to use the strength point markers. Okay, and I think the next thing is going to be the disease table. Yep. So we go over here. Let's start taking a look. First of all, I guess we'll do the Veracruz guy here. He adds 1. I don't know if this even affects artillery. I feel like it shouldn't, but I mean, you know, when you got the squirts, man, you can't be firing cannonballs out. All right. And we said +1, 5. He's going to have a 20% ineffective, which means I lose either 1 or 2. I don't know which. Over here, for the entire U.S. Army, they're going to be a +2 on the table. they get a 5, they also get a 20% ineffective. Now, here's where things get icky. I don't have a hell of a lot of these counters. If I want to split this force up, I'm going to have to, use additional counters. I already talked about this. But now, and everybody's in full supply. The Mexicans are at -2 over here. They have no plus because they're on the right side of the line. I get a 3, that's a 10% in effect. This is just going to affect the amount of points that we can contribute in each battle. And the Army of Mexico here, also at a -2. They are happy as can be. So, yeah. This is going to put the U.S. in a problematic situation where 20% of our forces is down. The Mexican army could actually move forward. This is only assessed here. We can slip back over the line and screw with the Americans as long as we fall behind it on each disease phase, for whatever that matters. All right, break time. So the big question now is, what do the Mexicans do? No reinforcements came in. If I can get these together on the main U.S. force, it's worth beating up. This thing is nothing. I might be able to besiege or whatever, but I need to beat that thing. That is my threat, because if I don't get that out of the way, it can screw with me no matter what. But I think it's probably too far away. Yeah. Roughs cost basically anything but the highway is a pain in the ass. Roughs cost 2 each. Here I could come to here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could shift over, and I mean, the U.S. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 essentially to here, 7. So I could actually shift my forces over to try to put a threat on the U.S. forces, force them to fall back a little bit, but I'm not going to be able to trap them and catch them. I can do quite a bit of damage. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 2 movement points. 3 to here. There's no zone of control out of there. 4, 5, 6, 7. I place there. Now, this force would have to attack if I don't pull back. I'm in danger of being attacked by the U.S. force. However, I can pull out 1. That throws me far enough back. I don't think the U.S. can dare chase me that far outside their supply lines. But I'm cutting them off from behind with Santa Ana. Now, I may not want to move this far. I think I'll sit here, getting the better terrain. Mountains are just impassable, right? Yeah, completely. All right, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm a little worried about my supply lines with the Army of Mexico, but the U.S. is going to have to go out of its way to cut them off. And if it spreads itself out that much, it might not be that bad an opportunity for me to attack. This is where I get silly when there's maneuvers like this going on, right? All right, so the U.S. got some supplies. I burnt supplies so that these guys have their full movement allowance, which I kind of need. I got a huge force. I got a few choices. I could fall back. My withdrawal doesn't happen until here. I could do a lot of damage before then. I could pursue these guys and attack them, putting myself in a position where the Army of Mexico can probably double team me and smack me up pretty hard. I could try to cut across this way. I take a quick look at it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would get me to there. I am in supply. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 could get me to there. Neither of those look really good. It's kind of like a death or glory moment. I feel like my choices, I'm not going to face the Army of Mexico on its own. I feel like my choices are to try to beat up this smaller unit by marching this way, or to fall back on Veracruz. I think 5 or 6, I pursue the death or glory option. Yep, all right. Actually, 5, 5, 6, 6 to here. All right, let's do it. All right, so I counted the troops. I have 43 strength points for the U.S., 9 of which are ineffective because they're at minus 20%, and 26 for the Army of the East, 3 of which are ineffective, so 23. So I'm looking at 34 to 23, which is a half point short of 3 to 2. Oops. Okay, so that gets me on the 1-to-1 table still. And what do we got here? National morale is going against the U.S. still. So -1 on their table, but they have a morale of +2. And for the Mexicans, they're at +1 on their table, which also gets them to +2. No bonuses there. Both sides have an army present, so there's nothing there. Leadership is 3 to 2. The 3 gets me nothing. The 2, we're getting good leaders, or good leadership from the Mexicans, gets me to +1, which means the Mexicans drop us down to the 1 to 2 table. And I mean, it's not that terrible mechanically. It's just, why are all these different die rolls? Couldn't that all be baked into one thing? Well, it wouldn't give the same story. So the U.S. gets a hold -1. We're hitting terrain. Sorry, the U.S. gets a hold -2. They both get hold -2s. Okay. So no one's retreating anywhere. No one takes any great loss. But morale of -1 at 2. 5%. Now, I think this is going to be of the total value. So 5% of 43 is 2 strength points. And now for the Mexicans at +1 morale, also an H2. But a big roll. They get a 10%, so we're going to lose 3 strength points. Not a big deal in either direction. See, the percentages didn't mean that much in terms of the losses there. That's going to pull us to turn 9. I'm calling this the Battle of Mount Orizaba. I'm just recording everything. You know, I had such a fun time with whatever it was I did recently, where, what was it I just played? I can't fucking remember what I did. This is horrible. I can't remember what games I've played. I mean, I just did. Oh, the Battlefleet Mars, where I recorded stuff in a compendium and whatever. So I'm doing it here because I got to keep some track of the battles on paper anyway. So I might as well name them or something. All right, that's going to put it back on the Mexicans, though. Now Santa Anna has to start dealing with his political situation very, very shortly. But first, he gets to move forward. Now, there's something else. This town has just fallen. That means I get guerrillas during my reinforcements. Drop a couple of guerrillas down. I put one here, blocking the main highway, and another one here. It can't be within 3, well, has to be at least 3 away from the U.S. unit. But now Santa Anna is going to move back, try to win a major victory, and then come back and campaign for president, I guess. And this is merely a continuation of the last battle. It's just that the Army of Mexico has made its way down during it. And U.S. has the total of 41. That's the 2 off of what they had. They'll be at -8 for that, so that gets them down to 33 total. The Mexicans are a total of 79, but these guys are at 10% off, which is now going to be just -2. So it's 77 to 33. I have a 2-to-1 advantage. And I got them surrounded, man. 2-to-1 advantage. Battle die rolls. Well, morale, U.S. still in trouble. 3, their battle morale is just going to be +1. The Mexicans have a weaker morale table, but they're doing better. And now leadership-wise, it's still 3-2. Oh, the U.S. gets nothing. And the Mexicans have better leadership again. They're getting really kind of lucky, I gotta say. That means 2 shifts in my favor. Armies cancel out. It was already 2-to-1. 2-to-1 shifts me 1-2 to this table. It's at -1 because the U.S. is in the rough, just like we were. That gets me 3. The attacker is going to get an advance. The defender is going to get a failure. This is going to be problematic for the U.S. They've already lost their artillery, so it's no big deal there. But the results are both going to be on the 2 table. So we take a look at the -1 at 2. And the U.S. is going to take 10% of their force. That's going to be a 4-point loss. But the Mexicans have a bigger force. And what are we at? We're at 4. We're at 3. A2, F2. The Mexicans are on the +1 table, also on the 2. They get a 5% hit. 5% of 80 is going to be 4. 79 is the same. So both sides lose the same number of troops, but the U.S. has to retreat. They have to go through a zone of control. This is going to cause them problems. They're going to have to retreat 7 hexes. Now, I can't go through here. This is, it's kind of hard to see, but there's kind of a yellowish tinge there. So, how does this mountain work? I can't go through here. Ow. I'm just in trouble. So there's this annoyance about the way the retreat rules are written. Like, there's basically 2 prohibitions, and they're not given a difference in how they're dealt with. Let's see, where the fuck is the retreat? In combat. I'm in combat. Oh, here we go. All these blue colors don't help me. So each stack must be moved as a whole. They must attempt to retreat towards their supply source. They must avoid enemy zone of controls whenever possible. I think each hex has to be closer to the closest to the supply source. I'm giving that precedence because it's written first, which means I'm going to have to come around this way. The guerrillas could attack me, but they're not going to be strong enough to face a whole army. Their strength has to beat the strength of what marches through them. So we're going to be coming this way. Now, what did I say? 7 hexes, I think? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 have to follow the road. I get a demoralized marker in addition to my minus 20%. And I take an additional 1, 2, 3 hits for those zones of control that I had to take. So I didn't take 4. I actually end up taking 7. All the Mexican units have to march into here. That means Santa Anna's troops have gotten a little bit sick as well. So we lose whatever advantage we had off that. Notably, when you're taking losses for the Mexicans, it behooves you to lose good militia units because it puts them back in the pool. Obviously, you can't lose zeros. They last until they're wiped out by like being alone in a hex or something. So that doesn't happen very often unless you're using them as dummies on their own. And you can't really know, right? Like, once it's flipped over and it's a zero, it's not that impressive marching around on its own because it's obvious what it is. It's only impressive as a zero stacked in there where it's the same as the dummies for the U.S. But yeah, losing 1-point militia just puts kind of, if you lose zeros, you're kind of hoping your zeros come out once and they don't come out again. If you lose ones, they can go back in and show up again. So they're not particularly good to take losses on. I've been taking a mixture of losses. Haven't taken a lot of regular units. I probably ought to be, rather than taking 1-point militia, which have been being taken. There aren't a lot of 2-point militia. That's going to put things on the U.S. Obviously, I'm demoralized. I can't launch an attack. I probably need to fall back on my supply source just to get out of range of these guys, but maybe I don't want to. Let's take a look at the political situation for Santa Anna, because I think he has to take like 20 strength points if he ends up rolling his political. Yeah, at least 20 effective combat strength points. Now, that's not a lot. He's got like 80 here. Well, a little less now, but, and plus he took a 10% hit. So it's probably closer to like 65 at this point after hits and whatnot. But still, 20 of that still leaves a force that's big enough to block the U.S. force from whatever it's doing. I don't spend supplies, so I'm actually in general supply. I don't know about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I better spend a supply. And I'll keep the horse there because otherwise I have to kind of expose it. I don't think the Mexicans can reach me, but who knows? And I'm safer just shuttling horses back and forth at this point. So I've fallen back there. I'm no longer demoralized. And I did spend supplies so that I'm not in general supply if I get attacked. I don't remember what the effect of being in general supply is, but I know it's not good. Like, is it a morale hit or what? I can't recall. The effects of general supply. Movement allowance of 4, which is what I moved. Now I may want to move a little further, although I don't know. I don't really. I'm not really scared of the Mexicans attacking me. It's -2 from your battle morale. Yeah, we don't want that. I'll put back one more hex. One more hex. just to be a little bit further back for whatever that matters. But it really doesn't make much difference. And that is the end of the turn. Now this is a big deal because next turn Santa Anna gets to decide whether or not campaigning for re-election is more important than campaigning to stop his country from failing. I think we're going to load this up. I've been paying a lot of, I've been showing a lot of what's going on in the game, which wouldn't be necessary, but somehow I'm kind of enjoying. This feels so chaotic. It really does. All right. Not as chaotic as Halls of Montezuma did. Halls of Montezuma gave you a much, much broader view of things. I really wish I could remember Rush for Glory. Somebody has commented that it was kind of a mess. Halls of Montezuma was kind of a mess, so I guess I could look back at what I said about it. I probably put a blurb in on the not just the review, but I also probably put a blurb that kind of summarized my thoughts. But I'm pretty sure it didn't impress the hell out of me. Whereas Halls of Montezuma kind of did. There were some really cool things about it. There were just things that didn't really work right. This, on the other hand, seems to work just fine. It's just, I don't know. It's got a decent amount of chrome in it, but it's old school chrome, not, not the chrome in a CDG type thing. And I feel like the CDG actually represented this situation a little bit better. I'm growing less and less fond of pure hex and counter traditional games using kind of, for representing situations where basically it's two armies hunting each other down over a lot of terrain. It just feels like I've got too much detail here with the hex map compared to the point-to-point situation. And delivering the kind of interesting, exciting stuff via charts and tables may not be... I mean, there's a reason CDG's caught fire, right? And caught fire for a lot of the sort of pre-20th century games is they really do a nice job of giving you some good choices and whatnot in terms of play ability, as well as giving you a lot of historical insight into at least what historical things happened or might have happened, rather than the reasons behind them. But I just don't feel particularly like these charts and tables drive things all that much better than the cards do. The only thing that I do like about the charts and tables is I don't have control over everything, right? I feel like I have a little bit too much micromanaging control over CDGs, and that's really the big issue. And of course, the map is prettier than a bubble map. There's no question about that. All right.